fallen. This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risk. You know, for years, the main backers of Assad have been Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. But over the last week, their support collapsed, all three of them, because all three of them are far weaker today than they were when I took office. And let's remember why. After Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, when much of the world responded with horror, Iran and its proxies chose to launch a multi-front war against Israel. That was a historic mistake on Iran's part. Today, Iran's main territorial proxy, Hezbollah, is also on its back. We will engage with all Syrian groups, including within the process led by the United Nations, to establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward independent, sovereign, independent, I want to say it again, sovereign Syria, with a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. And this process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves. And the United States will do whatever we can to support them. We are mindful that there are Americans in Syria, including those who reside there, as well as Austin Tice, who was taken captive more than 12 years ago. We remain committed to returning him to his family. This is the best opportunity in generations for Syrians to forge their own future, free of opposition. It's also an opportunity through far from certain, for a more secure and prosperous Middle East, where our friends are safe, where enemies are contained. And it would be a waste of this historic opportunity if one tyrant were toppled and only to see a new one rise up in its place.
Yep. So you heard right, folks. The Syrian government has fallen in a stunning end to a 50-year rule of the Assad family. It fell early Sunday after a sudden rebel offensive. That's what we're calling it, a rebel offensive. Sprinted across the government-held territory and entered the capital in under 10 days. It is led by Al-Qaeda. You know, the people who supposedly flew all those planes into the Twin Towers on 9/11 that they told us that our entire world had to exist to destroy Al-Qaeda. Well, an Al-Qaeda offshoot called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, led by a man named Muhammad al-Jawlani, who is a wanted terrorist. He is literally a wanted terrorist by the United States, who is on the State Department bounty list for $10 million. Well, he's the new leader of Syria. So we've spent the last 23 years saying that because Al-Qaeda hit us on 9/11, allegedly, that we had to do everything possible to destroy Al-Qaeda and anybody connected to them. That's why we supposedly got Saddam Hussein. Remember, we supposedly got Saddam Hussein because he was supposed to be connected to Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. Well, you know how that goes. Yep, they lied to you again. The same people who lied to you about everything else lied to you again. They don't care about Al-Qaeda. They never did. Hell, they made Al-Qaeda. But y'all ain't ready for that discussion yet. So Syrian state television aired a video statement by these group of men saying that President Bashar Al-Assad had been overthrown and all the detainees in jail have been set free. Oh, I'm sure that's going to go great. Just let everybody, let all the murderers free. Let everybody free. and empty out the jails. I wonder how that's going to work out for him. The man who read the statement said, the Operation Room to Conquer Damascus, an opposition group, called on all opposition fighters and citizens to preserve state institutions of the Free Syrian State. Yes. The statement emerged hours after head of a Syrian opposition war monitor had said Assad had left the country for an undisclosed location that we now know as Russia, fleeing ahead of the insurgents who said that they had entered Damascus following the remarkably swift advance across the country. We now know Assad has been given asylum in Russia by Vladimir Putin. And also all these liberators that the corporate media, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, all these people who are being called liberators are now rounding up and murdering all the Syrian soldiers and officials. This seems like Libya all over again, where Muammar Gaddafi was protecting all the black people in Libya and from other surrounding countries who were running from terrorists who wanted to behead them and rape them and, destroy them. And once Gaddafi was gone, we put those people in charge, and guess what they did? They started putting black people on sale, literally, having slave auctions for black people like it's 1555. You can easily go find the pictures and videos of, just Google any of that stuff. You can find Libyan slave auctions of black Africans. It's a really horrific scene. And in this case, actually, Bashar Al-Assad was protecting the Christians from people like Al-Qaeda and all ISIS and all the psychos who wanted to murder all the Christians. So, not a good day for Christianity, but the corporate media won't tell you that, of course. This whole thing actually started probably 13 years ago. At least the explosion, when our media, the West and Western governments created the Arab Spring, which was supposed to be this liberation fest amongst different Arab countries. That's what deposed Gaddafi, and they've been trying to get Assad ever since. Now, the best thing that Barack Obama did during his presidency was not destroy Syria. He could have. The Republicans tried to get him to, and even some of the war hawks in his administration. Hillary Clinton. Excuse me. Tried to get him to destroy Syria. He said, look, it's not worth it. We just destroyed Libya. Why do it to Syria? So Obama showed a considerable amount of restraint when it came to not destroying Syria. I guess it only makes sense that his vice president, a man he picked to be his vice president, would come and finish off the job and destroy Syria, or at least put it in the hands of literal wanted terrorists who have been known to behead people that don't agree with them. And of course, Israel has not missed this opportunity to move in and fill the void and fill the vacuum. They've completely annexed the Golan Heights from Syria. And so all this talk about everything Israel was about self-defense and about trying to make sure October 7th never happened again. All that was hogwash. All of it. The last 23 years of American foreign policy, where we supposedly were supposed to do everything possible to make sure Al-Qaeda could not exist anymore, could not hurt anybody anymore. That's all hogwash. All of it was hogwash. They got trillions of dollars out of you, the taxpayer. And all they've done is wreck the Middle East, kill millions of people, send millions of people from Africa and the Middle East into Europe, and now they come into this country We have millions of people coming from the Middle East and Africa into America who are looking for asylum, who are looking for safety, and I can't blame those people. I'm not mad at them. I mean, I don't support mass immigration, as I said a few minutes ago, but I understand why the people want to immigrate here after America destroys their countries. I understand that. So now this is all a part of the greater Israel project. And whenever it comes to these types of things, I'm always reminded of General Wesley Clark, the former general who at the beginning of the War on Terror, went on record talking about how our government planned right after 9/11. Like, I guess they'd been planning this before 9/11 to destroy 7 countries in 5 years. They were going to take over 7 countries. This is one of our generals, Wesley Clark.
About 10 days.
Talking about right after him going to the Pentagon, right after 9/11, and what he was told.
After 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
So there you go. That was Wesley Clark from...
The truth is about the Middle East is...
that was Wesley Clark from, I think, 2004. Right? So that's about 20 years ago, because that's when I first saw it, when he was talking to Amy Goodman. And so that's been the plan. Just completely demolish the Middle East. They had, at the time, during the Bush administration, had planned 7 countries in 5 years. 7 countries in 5 years. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and some other ones. And I guess another domino. They got Iraq, they got Afghanistan, they've got Syria, they got Libya. Well, they're working on Lebanon. They're working on Lebanon as we speak. So this is what all this was for, folks. This is what all of this was for. So we're going to go to a break, another break. We'll be right back after these.
We're about to see maybe a million examples of what I call hindsight anti-imperialism, which is basically the cheerleading of a regime change effort when it's actively in motion, followed by the retroactive condemnation of said regime change effort. Usually once time passes and more information is released to the public showing that the war was based on lies, led to mass suffering, and failed to produce any of its promised results. Published this article a couple months ago for Red America, the journal of the Communist Party, and it's exactly what we're seeing with a lot of leftists in relation to Syria right now. In the coming months, many of the leftists who cheered the takeover of Syria are going to get a much clearer understanding of what they've actually been supporting. Because the media is portraying this as a heroic democratic revolution right now, but there's only so long that they can say that as the country falls into chaos. This is essentially Libya 2.0, another US-backed takeover that was initially cheered by many leftists. You have a strongman leader in Gaddafi or Assad who are demonized beyond human understanding by the Western media, and they're toppled by a coalition of Sunni extremist fighters who are supported by the US and the white and blue country, many of whom aren't even from Libya or Syria and have been transported in from other countries. And the media pitches this as a W for democracy, and the leftists cheer, yay, the dictator has been deposed. But then in the coming years we realize, oh no, the new dictators are selling people. The freedom fighters that we supported are rounding up ethnic minorities. Hey, now they're fighting each other for power and there's no central government to put a stop to it. Now millions of their people are fleeing to the United States and Europe on rafts. What happened in Libya is already starting to happen in Syria, except they have the added benefit of being bombed and invaded by the white and blue country. And as this information is released, more and more leftists will say, oh, this was a bad thing actually. It was more of an imperialist proxy war than it was a heroic revolution. The US and their proxies didn't actually care about human rights abuses being committed by the previous leader. They just want to control the country's economy and make them an outpost of Western imperialism. I won't be mad at people as they come to this realization. I'll just point them to this article, or link them to my reading guide for Lenin's imperialism to help them understand these things systematically. Put them onto some of my favorite independent journalists who are actually telling the truth about what's going on the ground. It's okay to be a hindsight anti-imperialist if you learn from your mistakes and stop being a hindsight anti-imperialist the next regime change effort. If you learn to be skeptical any time the US media is beating the war drums. If all the US imperialists are lining up to support something, you can pretty well bet that it's not a good thing.
Shout out to my man Midwestern Marks. We'll be right back. Hold tight.